Okay, so thank you, Josh, for agreeing to this interview. And we would love to hear a little bit more about the background of your research and maybe some insights about what you will tell us during the conference.
Sure. So my work is, I think, both empirical and conceptual. Those who don't know my work already, I work a lot on discards and waste from the electronic sector and have done a lot of work on post-consumer e-waste. More recently, I've been trying to turn my attention as much as possible upstream into manufacturing of electronics, waste and pollution arising in the manufacturing of electronics, and to some extent into the waste and pollution from mining for electronics. So yeah, I've been very focused on a particular economic sector, electronics, but the reasons for that are both just, sort of a personal fascination, but then also in terms of, how those technologies are allegorical. They tell us, I would argue, tell us broader stories about, both hopes and dreams for a sort of technological future, but they also get packed full of, all of our dystopian nightmares as well. And I'm very interested in, for lack of a better term, that kind of cultural meaning that those technologies take on. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
That's amazing. So your focus will continue being on e-waste, electronic and electric waste, or are you also looking at other aspects like plastics and so on?
Well, from a sectoral perspective, yes, the focus is still on electronics. Electronics, one of the reasons electronics are interesting, again, both empirically and conceptually, is that they are a multi-material entity, right? They're full of both plastics and metals. And so there's many different directions one can go with them. I for me, one of the really immediate foci is, again, looking as much as I can upstream into manufacturing, because there was a lot of attention on the effects of electronics manufacturing from a sort of a pollution or waste perspective, in the sense of paying attention to occupational health and safety, and then to some extent on the poisoning of landscapes around facilities. So there was a focus on that in the sort of, let's say, early 1980s until about the mid 2000s. And then things, not that those issues have gone away by any means, but the attention kind of turned more to the downstream e-waste kind of stuff. The reason I'm interested in, again, going back to the manufacturing and even the mining, is that the kinds of data sources have really proliferated since the early 2000s, though not necessarily in ways that make getting data easy. So one place I may focus my talk is on the potentials for what in other fields gets called open source intelligence. And that is something I'm only just beginning to really educate myself in. It's very well developed in other fields, and has been part of statecraft since there were states. But this is essentially using information from multiple sources that are publicly available but aren't inherently put out there to disclose what you nevertheless can find from them. So that's very abstract, but in a concrete way, one of the ways I've started to do that is in a paper that I got published in 2022 on the chemical discardscapes of electronics manufacturing. And I was able to, for example, use data that gets published in the for any publicly traded company in the United States. They have to disclose where all of their other facilities are in a particular part of this form, and that the purpose of that isn't, you know, for disclosing chemical releases, but it was a way, because they had to disclose it in this one form, it meant that I could find their locations outside of the US or other NAFTA countries. And within NAFTA, those companies have to disclose certain chemical releases at the plant level. And so I can say, all right, we can know this, this, and this at the plant level for this company, but they also have locations in all of these other places. And that was an initial step in being able to kind of map out the, as it were, the blank spots on the map, what we still couldn't see, but we could see the outlines of it. So it starts to give us a shape of what we don't know.
Yeah, that's amazing, because voluntarily disclosure, that just doesn't exist now.
Right.
They wouldn't give that
Right.
information away on their own.
Yes.